#1 station on the net, period. That's Hotline Radio, and you're listening to the #1 show on the net as well, and that's the Keith Harris Show. I'm your host, Keith Harris, and we have a very, very, I won't just say special, but I'll also say important and well-recognized gentleman on the phone today. He has been in over 100 projects, as a matter of fact. If you don't know who this guy is, you're not a movie buff, or you've been living underneath a rock somewhere. I hate to say it like that, but I'm just telling you the truth. On the line with us today, let me get a drum roll and roll out the red carpet for none other than the one and only actor, Bill Oberst Jr. What's going on, Bill?
All right, Keith. Is Hotline really, is that #1 radio station on the net?
Absolutely.
I didn't know that, man. You got the #1 show and the #1 station on the whole internet.
Hey, look, you know what? I like to think so anyway. So I guess I'll spend some time trying to implant it into everybody else's brain, right?
Well, you know what? Show business ain't nothing but PR. So I applaud you. It's a good station. I was not familiar with it, and I listened some this morning. It's pretty slick. I'm glad to be on your show.
Hey, man, I really appreciate that, man. Glad to have you. We try around here. We try. It's a variety of music and things like that. Listen, speaking of varieties, okay? Speaking of varieties, you play so many different roles. And listen, we'll get into that later. We'll get into that in a few minutes because you are all over the board, and I wonder how you play so many characters. But first of all, for everybody out there listening, let us know, and you guys are going to be shocked. All my listeners out there, you're going to be shocked if you don't know some of the films that you have watched, or even some of the series that you have watched, and you're going to be like, oh my goodness, that was Bill. You know what I mean? So that's crazy. But first of all, Bill, let everybody know, what was your first step in to the film industry or the entertainment industry?
Well, I'll tell you, when I'm listening to people, I'm always like, who the hell is that? So, because people got a lot of stuff to think about. So the most recent thing they might have known me for is a CBS series called Criminal Minds. Oh. And I played a killer on there last season who got away, still alive, and he's a deformed killer. He's got a big ear, and he's hunched over, and he's in backwoods Appalachia, and he kills people with barbed wire. Okay. That's me. I'm the one that with the big ear that kills people with barbed wire. He's kind of inbred in backwoods,
Hey, look, let me tell you something, Bill. I was going to wait to get into that because I had something to say about that right there. But then that you done brought it up, okay? Because and everybody, I know everybody out there watches Criminal Minds, and you had to see this episode. Bill, what was going on? Man, you would look, first of all, like you say, you're still alive, okay? And I don't normally see that. I don't see that too often on Criminal Minds, first of all, where somebody's slick enough to get away. But there's a few things you did, but my first question is, what in the world was going on, man? You was treacherous. You was doing the people dirty in Criminal Minds.
Well, hey, look here, Keith. Let me tell you something. The poor little guy, a brother and a sister got together, did the dirty, had the boy, and then, the mother has the guts. When the baby's born, she's got the guts to look at the baby because he's all messed up because she slept with the brother, and she looks at him and she says, oh, what's wrong with him?
Yeah, that was cruel. I saw that.
Like, yeah. Bitch, really?
Yeah, exactly.
Come on. And so she gives him up for adoption. What the hell you think he's going to grow up to be? So he's working it out the best way he can up there in the backwoods.
And you know what? He gave her a choice. He gave her a choice when he told her to tell the truth. He gave her a choice. And I know she was trying to be honest, but I think she should have said something a little different right there at the end because,
Well, yeah, because he was like, did you never even hold me, did you? You never even kissed me. And she was like, no. I was like, you better lie a little here and say, yeah, I did kiss you, something.
Yeah. Now, when you go into these roles, because look, you've gone in so many different directions. I mean, you've played Jesus, okay? You've played Abraham Lincoln, all right? You are playing some very important roles, and they span from across the board. Where do you pull this type of energy out of you to play such major people like this?
I will say, and this is my opinion and my faith, there's one source of energy, and that's God Almighty, and that's where everything comes from. So before I do a role, I ask him, one, is it okay? you've opened the door. Should I do this? And if I feel a check on my spirit, I don't do it. If I don't feel a check on my spirit, I say, okay, Lord, I am not able. I don't know how to do this, and I need you. And those are the times when it comes out the best. Because to play these dark roles that I do, you have to allow yourself to go to a dark place, and I can't do that without his permission.
Hey, I know that's right, especially to be able to play him like that. Now, kind of going back to how you got into this. Listen,
Yeah.
I can't even imagine. I can, but it's hard to imagine somebody like yourself going through with the amount of talent that you have, just going through the normal channels to get into the industry. Did you just go to sleep one night and wake up and you were playing a role? Like, how did you get into the industry?
Well, I was a fat kid, and I didn't know how to throw a football, and I made good grades, and people made fun of me when I was a kid. That's how I started being an actor, and I went into stage work, and up and down the East Coast for 15 years I did stage, and played John F. Kennedy, played Jesus, as you say, played Mark Twain, a lot of historical figures. And then I got on this thing called Sherman's March, which was a docudrama on the History Channel, so I played General Sherman from the Civil War.
Oh, wow.
And that got me out to L.A., but then I found out here that I couldn't work because I was ugly. And I don't mean, I don't think I'm hideous or nothing, but Hollywood's got two settings for men, Keith. You're either beautiful or you're a villain.
Yeah.
So I had to do a pivot and turn around and start playing roles I'd never played, and I branded myself as the creepy guy, and that's when I started working out here. Hollywood is nobody here has much time at all. They ain't got no time for you. They'll give you 10 seconds. Mm-hmm. And they better know in that 10 seconds exactly what you are, who you are, where they can put you in their cog, in their machine.
Yeah.
So if you're smart, you have to tell them, this is what I am, and make it easy for them. And that's what I did to get roles out here. Right.
To be able to find your niche or find your particular craft and where you exactly fit in at.
Right, and camera, you have to be real honest. You have to look in the mirror, unvarnished, and say, this is what I look like on camera. What types of roles am I likely to play? Mm-hmm. Because it's a visual medium,
Right. Well, you know what? You have these eyes. Your eyes, Bill, are really intense. And I notice a lot of times, when you're playing these roles. See, listen, I think that's why your roles are they're so passionate, they're so riveted, and they go through people's souls, because people can look into your eyes and your face and it just kind of says it all. Some actors will take a lot of movement when it comes to being action actors, or action figures. And then some people like yourself, you just see the picture that you're trying to paint as they look into your eyes on the camera. And is that something that you know about yourself, or is that just natural?
That's something the directors taught me, Keith. I'll be honest, I'd like to say I know it. But the more I did on camera, I had a really nice director say to me, Bill, don't scream, it's not your strength. Don't move around, it's not your strength. I said, well, what do I do? He said, be still, be still, be still, and don't blink. And I said, that's all I got to do? He said, yeah, and keep your voice low. And so I kind of took that as the way to go. And then I did a movie, and I would recommend it to your listeners. It's one of I think the most meaningful movies I've ever done. It's called The Retrieval.
Yeah.
Okay, it's out on DVD now, set in the Civil War, and I play a bounty hunter. But that director, Chris Esca, did more than anybody else to teach me to be still in the frame, like just not to do anything. When you look in somebody's eyes, it's a strong, strong contact, and you can't do it if you're moving around a lot. So that's what I try to do on screen, is to ignore the camera, think of one person, and just look in their eyes.
Right, and you know what? And I can honestly say, in most of the productions I've seen you in, it's odd you say that, because I have not seen you blink, Bill. So
blinking makes you weak. So that's how you can tell. Usually, if somebody's lying, if their nostrils flare and if they blink, it's too big. So if you ever play a character and you want them to be weak or a liar, blink.
Now, speaking about Retrieval, as a matter of fact, with Retrieval, you also won an award for Retrieval too. Tell us a bit about that.
Well, Retrieval won a bunch of awards. That movie won more awards than any independent film I've ever been in and it took it a while to get distribution. It's a film set in the time of slavery, near the end of slavery, 1864. It involves free men, it involves slaves, it involves a lot of the strong moral questions that ripped America apart. It's a powerful film, and I am surprised that it did not that it has not done well, but that it did not achieve national recognition, because everybody who I've talked to who watched the film, and I ain't saying this just because I'm in it,
right, but
people have said, this movie touched my heart, this movie touched my child's heart. But it's really hard for an independent film to get noticed unless you have a major star in it. It's a fight.
Right. Yeah. But, you know, and like you say, for it to not receive total national recognition, like, you know, I feel like it's supposed to. But is that something that happens? I'm assuming that happens a lot in the industry, but, you know, does that have to do with the differences in you know, maybe either distributions or you know, or being bought out? Like, is there a formula to why that happens, or is it just the way it is?
There is a formula. There is a formula, and I'll tell you that with this movie, I heard high-level studio people say, I love this film, but I don't think that America will like it because it's too spurious.
Okay.
Because what they think America wants is Hot Tub Time Machine 2 and Medea, and that's cool. I like both of those franchises. You know, I'm into the silliness, but there's a place in cinema for discussing things that matter in people's lives and in people's souls, but there ain't much room for it anymore unless you got a major Hollywood star. If it's an indie, they say, okay, you need to be sexy or silly to get distributed, and it's a problem.
You know what? You are absolutely right. People tend to want to shy away from the actual real issues and not really want to deal with them. And you know, in cinema and in film, it's good to have those things that take us away from reality. But at the same time, if we avoid those things, we're not really touching people's lives in a lot of ways like we should be sometimes.
You are so right, Keith. And check this, okay? Academy Awards last night takes place a mile and a half from where I live. They close the street. They take the homeless people off of the street, take them off to I don't know where, clean up the street, pressure wash it, put down carpet, put up lights. So what you see on TV is the glamour of Hollywood.
Yeah.
And then all that's coming down today, tomorrow it'll be back, and the homeless people will be right there living on the streets.
Wow.
People who've fallen through the cracks. And what I want to know is, where's their red carpet? And why do we have the idea that America can't see that?
Yeah, that's absolutely. A lot of people, I commend you for saying that, because a lot of people would be afraid to really bring that to the forefront. No one knows that about Hollywood. You understand? And you know, it's important for a lot of listeners out there to really realize and understand that there is a genuine reality side and a caring and a humanity conscience side to certain people within the Hollywood community, like Bill Oberst Jr. And you know, we thank you for putting that out. And you know, I don't know how that is. Let me ask you, playing Jesus, okay? What did you have? Listen, what did you have to pull out of you to play that role? And I'll give me a second to explain what I mean by that. Other people have played this role before, okay? But you play your roles with such intensity that I know that when you did this, you put your heart in it, you were sincere about it, and so you had to bring a lot of your inside to the outside. What did it take for you to do that?
I think that Jesus has been undersold because people make him either boring or a hard ass. Okay, I'm sure he had times when he would really challenge you and you would think, boy, you know, kind of a hard ass. But he had to be charismatic. He had to be engaging. He had to be funny, Keith, you know? And I heard preachers make him dry and boring for so long that I thought, I'm going to get into the scriptures. I want to read what he said just like I had never heard it before. And I found there was humor. There's challenging things. There were stories. He was an engaging personality. So when I played Jesus, that's what I tried to do. Again, asking God's help. Right. Try to bring across how he would draw people in. Because you can't just convict people. You know, you got to meet them where they are. And he did it every single time.
You know what? That again, I'll tell you, Bill, you amaze me, because once again, you bring out another side of this that people just have not thought about. Because this is just like you said, everyone will portray a role like that as just being judgmental. I mean, that's what he does, right? Quote unquote. That's what he does. He judges people. Only God can judge me, they say. All right. But right. But you know, as you say, what about the other sides? What about just being a normal person and just, in different personalities that he may have had? I don't even think other people have even ever thought about that, Bill.
Well, I mean, if he lived 30, 40 years, he told jokes. He loved people. He was loved. Mm-hmm. He did all the things that we do. One of my favorite stories about him is sitting at the house of Simon the leper having supper, and they reclined at tables then. They didn't sit up in chairs. They laid on each other's shoulders and ate with pillows under their arms. That's the way the Romans did. Mm-hmm. So he's laid out and his feet are spread out, and here comes this woman of ill repute, and she takes a jar of perfume worth a whole year's wages, like $30,000 today. Mm-hmm. And she busts it open and she pours it out on his feet. And people are like, whoa, what? Well, number one, what is this woman doing in here? Number two, you have wasted. You just poured $30,000 on a man's feet. Mm-hmm. Are you crazy? And Jesus turns and he says, "Leave her alone. She did a good thing."
Right, and a lot of people are under the impression that women weren't really respected, more or less, even noticed back in those times.
And he had female followers. He had females who supported him. Joanna is mentioned as a woman who supported him from her own purse, so she must have had some money. So Jesus was always with the people who you're not supposed to be with, and that's what I like about him.
Right. Now, have you ever had to go to, or wanted or chose to go to acting school?
I never had time because I was always working.
That's good.
I don't mean that in a bad way, but I always thought, I should really, when I moved to Hollywood, I mean, I did it in college to learn stage acting, and I moved down here and I thought, okay, I need to take some classes, but then I started working, and I thought, well, I better try to take some classes. I'm not sure I know how to do this. Right. But I just kept on working, and it's been 136 projects, so I guess if I ain't learned it by now, I ain't going to. Hey,
I think you got it by now. Now, 136 projects, okay. I tried to do the math on that and how busy. But and I'll say this: there are some people who can say that they've done quite an amount of projects, but not everyone can say that they've done moving projects, if you know what I mean. When you've done so many projects and then you've done good projects, you've done your job well, you've been noticed. People walk away saying, "Hey, I really remember that performance." That's saying a lot. Now, have you ever ran into those days? This is just dealing with the reality of the personality, the human mind. Have you ever ran into those days, Bill, where you're just like, I'm frustrated. I think I want to sit this down for a while. Does that ever happen?
All the time. All the time. In this business, you live and die by your last project, and every one I've done has not been a gem, and I hadn't always been good in them. And so when something comes out that it wasn't quite right for me, and I didn't find the key, and I read a bad review, just like everybody else, I'm like, oh man, I need to lay this aside. And many times I've said, God, if you don't want me to do this anymore, close the doors. Do not open the doors. I don't want any door open that you don't want open. Mm-hmm. And then another door will open up, and then I'll walk through that door. So yeah, absolutely. You get discouraged. It's just like any other job, right? Except that the end result of mine, instead of mixing concrete or fixing a pipe, mine is a movie that comes out. Hey. The difference is nobody puts to the plumber's work, and you don't have 120 people with movie review sites scrutinizing that and going, I don't think you did that pipe quite right. I'm right about that.
Exactly, because you're always on the front line. Do you sometimes? Your IMDb is beautiful, first of all, but do you ever? Are you really into even reading what? And I know you care about what your fans, your followers, and your friends think, but do you get caught into the reviews? I mean, because obviously you know that, hey, not every review is accurate anyway. I go try to find movies to watch sometimes, and they have like 1 star, and I play the movie, and it's one of the great ones. So do you? How interlocked do you get with reviews that people write about you?
You can't take it personal because you have to realize that to them you're not a real person. You know, when you think of George Clooney, when you think of Denzel, you think of the public persona. You don't know who they are as people. So when you write about him, you might say, "Oh, Denzel sucked in this role." You don't mean to hurt the man's feelings. You're not even thinking of him as a human. You're just thinking of him as the actor,
as the movie.
And people assume there's a shield up, so you have to not take it personal. Understand they're just talking about your profession. What I do if somebody says something that I didn't do a good job, I'll go down and comment under it and put, "Thank you so much for pointing this out. I'm gonna try to do better next time."
Now that's a big deal, because I'm sure not even a lot of people they might go back in and look up and be like, "What did Bill? Did he just comment under what I left?" And that right there is moving within itself to even interact with the people like that.
Well, if somebody takes the time to write about you or your show, I'm sure you do the same thing, and so do I. I want to say thank you, because people are very busy, and if they take time to notice you, we ought to say thank you.
Yeah, that's very true. Sometimes I do that on social media sometimes, and I know people looking at me like, why does he have to answer everything somebody says? But because I take it seriously, though. It's, you know what?
That's right.
It's almost like, listen, if somebody directed a comment to me or says something to me, it's like they're talking to me. And so if I don't... Right.
You're a celebrity. You're a celebrity to them. And so if a little girl in Cincinnati is writing, "Hey, I really like your show, Keith," her feelings are hurt if you don't say thank you, and that's the reality of it.
Exactly. It's a conversation. Now,
that's right.
Okay, talking about Take This Lollipop, all right? Daytime Emmy Award, Bill. All right? How did that feel? Except for great.
For people who don't know what Take This Lollipop is, if they'll go to takethislollipop.com, it's a Facebook application. Sign in through Facebook. It's okay. I won't tell you what happens, but it might freak you out a little bit. So we had 100 million views on this thing, and it won a daytime Emmy up against Ellen and some other shows. And
what?
It was surprising was the word. And I remember when it won, they announced it, and I called my manager and I said, "Matt, Take This Lollipop just won the Emmy." And Matt he's the master of understatement. You know, he said, "Well," he said, "that is not unhelpful." And it helped me quite a bit. It opened up some doors because people do respect awards, and I was grateful for it.
Are you one of those? Well, I guess we kind of said that before, but speaking about the the award show and getting people off the street, but film festivals. Do you ever find yourself attending some of the festivals that you're
got to? And that's the same thing as the reviews. If people are taking time to run your movie, if you can go, you need to get your ass over there. I know you might not feel like it, but this is me talking to myself.
Right.
Billy, you need to put your monkey suit on. You need to get in your little car, and you need to get your ass to work.
Yeah, right.
If the movie ain't showing until midnight, drink a Red Bull and keep on rocking, because it's special to people when you show up at a film festival and say, "Thank you for running this film." That means something, so I always try to do it.
Right. What about producing, Bill? Are any production plans in the cards for you?
Yeah, I produced on a little art house film called Coyote, one of the weirdest movies I ever did. And it's done well. I enjoyed it. And I've got a couple more that I'm attached to as a producer. Now, when I say producer, there's two types of producers. There's the executive producers, and then there's the line producers. The line producers are the ones who are down in the dirt making the thing happen. And the rest of us, we just listed as producers. We might do a little bit of work. But there's a lot of people behind the scenes. For every scene in a movie that you see, there's 100 people there whose names you'll never know, and I got to respect that.
Right. And you know what? Look, your award list is pretty healthy there, and I tell you, I can't help but to almost every time we jump to a film, I have to remind that you've won an award for that film almost, because like Coyote, for instance, you got Best Actor, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's a weird movie. Now, it's not for everybody, and I tell people, some of the stuff I do is, it's pretty out there, and it ain't for kids. And I think people ought to watch what the kids watch, and I'm a big fan of that. Don't just go to Walmart and throw the stuff in take a look at it. See what your kids are looking at.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I tell you, again, you play these roles, in such a way that a lot of people can't, I won't say can't, but a lot of people are not, is first choice or as fit for them as you are. But their roles that were, it's true though. But their roles.
And you know what else is funny? Like people say, "Oh, why would you take that role? That's a strange role." I'm like, those are the ones that get noticed.
Exactly. Now, but because look, the art of creating cinema or the art of creating film, that is in a lot of times the point. The point is to bring something to the table that really expands our minds. If it didn't, then what would be the point of going out and getting budgets and spending hours and makeup and wardrobe and things of that nature. So it touches that.
Keith, you need to be in movies, man. I just got to say, because what you just said is so true. Cinema is an art. And like any other art, you can do anything you want with it. You can move people, you can touch them, you can make them think of different things. And so often people are just like, I got to do what everybody else has done so I can make money on this. But if you do something different that touches people, people will flock to it.
Right. Now, look. I'm gonna talk about this one. Abraham Lincoln versus zombies. All right. Now, first of all, let me tell you. Okay, I had once I saw the film myself, and I'll tell you how much I fell in love with it, but once I saw the film myself, like anything else, I started to run into more people. And every time I looked around, somebody was like, "Have you seen Abraham Lincoln versus Zombies?" I just kept hearing that. And I'm like, yeah, as a matter of fact, I have. Now, I'm going to say to everybody out there listening, okay, when you hear the title, Abraham Lincoln versus Zombies, the first thing you're thinking is, where does Abraham Lincoln and zombies fit in? Okay? And I'm just being real. But I tell you what, Bill, you took this role and you turned it into an American story. And I don't say that, is to be kissing butt or to be a clown or anything. But first of all, you took Abraham Lincoln's role and you made him into an Abraham Lincoln that cared about his people. He wasn't a silly Abraham Lincoln that was like, deranged or weird. He cared about his people, and it was just, and it actually worked out to be a touching story, almost as if it could have really happened if we had Abraham Lincoln or a president at that time, which I think had we ever faced such a situation, I think Abraham Lincoln would have probably been a good president to have. First of all, let me say that. But you did that role amazingly. How did you stay so calm playing Abraham Lincoln in that?
I appreciate you saying that, because Lincoln was a boyhood hero of mine. Lincoln was a great man. People mess with him all the time, and I didn't want to make fun of him when they asked me to do this. And I asked the director, I said, what do you want? And I was afraid he was going to say, I want him to be silly. And he said, I want the Lincoln of history. Mm-hmm. And luckily, I knew the Lincoln of history, having read so much about him as a boy. Lincoln was a great man. He was a strong man. He had a bad marriage. He was an ugly man. Mm-hmm. He was tenacious. Lincoln knew how to hold on. So I just tried to figure, well, if he was fighting zombies, he would not be unnecessarily cruel, but he would get the job done.
And that's what he was about. He stayed focused, just like, nowadays, in our latter years, if we ran into a situation, again, this is why I compare this film to real American scenarios in real American history, because the way he carried this out as a president was similar to the way that a president of our generations now would have done. He had to stay serious. He had to stay focused. He had to stay disciplined. He didn't believe in just harming other people for no reason. He gave people an opportunity to work with them. I mean, it was an amazing story. And guess what? He still had a heart, because he had his love interest too.
That's right. And that's they brought in some history in there into the film and mixed it in. I thought that, for a zombie movie, if you're going to have Lincoln involved, I thought they did a pretty good job. They did,
man. They did. And let me ask you, when you did that, did it work out pretty much the way they wrote it, or
no?
And that's why I asked that question.
It was a low budget movie, and the director had written $1 million movie. And if we had $1 million, there was all kinds of things in the script that didn't get in there. But within the confines of a low budget movie, I thought they did a pretty good job.
And I have to, and it leads me to have to ask this question: what else could they? And probably not a question you would answer, but what in the world else could they have needed? It was just subtle enough. I mean,
and originally, you've heard of the Gatling gun, right?
Of course.
His first big machine gun. Okay, so in the original script, Dr. Gatling, who's invented the Gatling gun, he sends a note to Lincoln down in the fort, and he's like, look, I hear you got this problem down here with these creatures, and I got one prototype of the Gatling gun, and I want to send it to you. So originally, you had scenes of Lincoln riding the Gatling gun through the streets of Savannah, mowing down thousands of zombies.
Wow. Holy
That didn't happen.
But you know what? I have to honestly say now, of course, if I saw that in a movie, I'm sure they would have made a way to make it make sense. But honestly, after seeing this movie, I think that what happened, I think the way he did it was as good as it should have been done. Like, because you guys didn't you didn't overlay it. You didn't add too much on.
I appreciate you saying that. And if some people haven't seen Lincoln versus Zombies, give it a chance. And you know what? Not every movie that I make, my mama can see. And this is one.
Right.
I said, Mama, this is a zombie. She said, well, I don't like that scary stuff. I said, Mama, it's not really scary. You'll like it. And so she could watch it. And she called me up and she said that was funny and I enjoyed it.
It was absolutely great, man. Another great from you. Yeah, absolutely. Everyone, go get Abraham Lincoln versus Zombies. If you think you're not going to remember, write it down, or I'm going to just throw the title up on social media a little later. You have to go and see it. What can we, if you can talk about any projects, not too much, I'm sure you won't be able to, but what can we possibly expect in the future from you? Which is tons of stuff I already know myself, but.
And that's a good question to wrap up on, because I know I'm nearing 30 minutes and I never like to hear people. Mark Twain said it's a terrible death to be talked to death, and I fully agree.
Are you saying? Are you saying, Bill? Are you saying I'm talking you to death, Bill? Is that?
No, sir. I just don't want your audience who loves the sound of your voice to think, "Damn, Bill goes on for a little while."
All right.
Yeah, I got coming up maybe a return to Criminal Minds with that character, and I've got about 18 projects in production this year. The next film that's released is going to be one called Deadly Revisions, where I play a writer, and he has amnesia, and he can't tell what's real and what's not, a writer of horror movies. And that's a pretty good little thriller. And again, it's another one my mother can see, not a lot of profanity, no sex, and thrillers. And I'm kind of orienting toward those kind of movies now, where I've done a lot of the extreme stuff, and I want to do some stuff that, it's hard hitting, but stuff that my mama can see. The older I get, that's more important to me.
I know that's right. And that, yeah, and also that's going to be another, Revisions is another good film, as a matter of fact, to look forward to. Gregory Blair, I believe, is involved with that one. You guys may be working together on that too. So big shouts out to Gregory Blair if you're listening out there for that too.
And so I would encourage anybody who wants to interact with me, hit me up on social media. I'm on there on my name, and if you follow me, I'll follow you. If you write to me, I'll write you back eventually. And I just appreciate interacting with people, real people, not Hollywood red carpet people. That's a part of the business, and you got to do it. But I need to interact with real people to keep my head in a good place. And so I appreciate the opportunity to ask your listeners to do that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Listen, everybody out there, this is actor Bill Oberst Jr. And go check him out. I'll be watching another one of his great films, flicks tonight. I suggest you do the same. Listen, Bill, kudos to you. We love everything you do. Listen, it's been a sincere honor to have you on today. And I look forward to in the future you coming back and we sit down and we talk some more, Bill.
Keisha, I appreciate that. Best to you and your family, and God bless you.
God bless, Bill.
All right, man. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Everybody out there all across the land, that was the man, Bill Oberst Jr., right here on the Keith Harris Show. I tell you what, I really felt that conversation. Again, a sincere expression of down to earth. Not just a guy with his head in the clouds, just like, hey, I've done so many films and haha, really down to earth guy. And when you watch his films, I think that's expressed in his sincerity in the roles and the characters that he plays. that you can tell he really wants to be there. You can tell that he wants to bring the best out of himself, and you can tell he enjoys what he does. So once again, we send a big shout out to Bill Oberst Jr. And we wish him continued success in this industry for as long as he will be permitted. All right. So, by the way, don't forget, everyone, if you tuned in late or you caught half of the conversation, in just a little while, we will have the interview posted up on social media, so you can go check it out there. And that's what's up. All right. So once again, we send a big shout out and a thank you to Bill Oberst Jr. and his whole team and his staff and everybody involved. You listen to the Keith Harris Show right here on Hotline Radio. I'll be right back.